The congratulatory flowers were getting heavy in my hands when the words hit me like a punch to the gut. "You're done here, Harper. Clear out." His first day as CEO, my last day as anything. The marble lobby went dead silent, 100 people pretending they didn't just watch me get executed in public. But as I walked away, my dress shoes clicking on that polished floor, he had no clue about the little clause buried on page 47 of our biggest contract, the one that made my name the key to a $120 million deal. Come tomorrow morning, his secretary would figure out real quick that when you pull out the wrong brick, the whole damn wall comes down. My name's Wesley Harper. I'm 47, and I'd been walking through those revolving doors at Holstrom Dynamics for 20 years like I belonged there. Not because I was full of myself, but because I'd earned every inch of respect in that 40-story tower. Senior Vice President of Client Relations, that's what it said on my door. What it didn't say was that I'd saved this company from going belly up twice, brought in partnerships worth billions, and knew where all the bodies were buried. That Tuesday started like any other day. 7:45 a.m. Sharp, I'm pushing through those doors with my usual black coffee and some fancy flowers I'd grabbed on Fifth Avenue. White roses and orchids. Classy stuff, the kind you bring when you want to make a good first impression on the new boss. Even wrote a little note. To new leadership and continued success. Yeah, I know. Real ironic now. The lobby was buzzing with nervous energy. You had groups of people huddled by the security desk whispering like school kids. I caught bits and pieces. Wonder what this guy's like. Heard he fired half the staff at his last place. Hope we don't get the axe. I gave them my usual confident nod. Everything was going to be fine. We'd been through CEO changes before. This was just business as usual. "Morning, Wesley." Finn O'Connor from accounting called out. Guy was clutching his coffee like it was a life preserver. "You meeting with the new guy today?" 10:30, I said, switching the flowers to my other arm. Right after he does his big speech to everyone. If I'd known those were going to be my last words as a Holstrom employee, I might have chosen something better. The elevator ride up to 38 felt different somehow. When those doors opened on the executive floor, I barely recognized the place. All that warm wood and burgundy carpet, gone. Now everything was white and chrome like some kind of operating room, made my skin crawl. Mason Brooks was standing right in the middle of it all, and I got why people were scared of this guy. Tall, sharp as a knife in his expensive suit with these cold gray eyes that looked right through you. He had his own crew with him, faces I'd never seen before, people who moved like sharks. All our old-timers were nowhere to be found. I walked up with my flowers and my best business smile, stuck out my hand like a normal human being. "Mr. Brooks, I'm Wesley Harper, Senior VP of Client Relations. Welcome to Holstrom Dynamics." This guy looked at my hand like I'd just offered him a dead fish. Then he looked up at me and I saw my future in those gray eyes before he even opened his mouth. "Harper," said my name like he was reading it off a hit list, which turns out he pretty much was. Perfect timing. The whole floor went quiet. Every cubicle rat popped their head up to watch the show. His new people were smirking behind their tablets. Even the air conditioning seemed to stop. "I've been looking at the org chart," he said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "Finding the dead weight. Legacy guys who've gotten too comfortable. People stuck in the old ways of doing things." I kept smiling. 20 years in corporate America teaches you to smile while everything burns around you. "I'd be happy to walk you through our current projects," I said. "We've got some major deals that won't be necessary." Cut me off like I was nothing. "Your services aren't needed anymore. Security will walk you out." Those words hit the silence like a gavel. Someone gasped. I think it was Ava Miller from Legal, who'd started around the same time I did. The flowers in my hand suddenly felt ridiculous, like bringing roses to your own funeral. "I see," I said. What else was there to say? I'd watched enough people beg in boardrooms to know better than that. Can I ask why? You may not. Already turning away, dismissing me before security even showed up. This is a new era for Holstrom Dynamics. We need fresh ideas, not relics hanging around from the past. Relics. 20 years of 60-hour weeks, missed family dinners, canceled vacations, and I was a relic. The security guys who came over looked embarrassed as hell. Caleb Richardson and Lucas Anderson. I'd shot the breeze with these guys 1,000 times over coffee. They couldn't even look me in the eye. "Sir," Caleb mumbled, "we need to escort you to your office so you can pack up your stuff." "Won't be necessary," I said, echoing Brooks's words. My voice sounded steadier than I felt. I keep my personal stuff in my car. That was a lie, but I wasn't going to give this guy the satisfaction of the whole cardboard box walk of shame. My dad's picture could stay in that desk drawer. Those awards on the wall belonged to someone who didn't exist anymore. I looked down at those flowers still clutched in my hands. White roses for new beginnings. The irony could have killed a horse. With slow, deliberate moves, I walked over to the nearest trash can and dropped them in. The sound they made hitting the bottom was the only goodbye I was going to give this place. "Wesley," someone whispered as security flanked me toward the elevator. Sophia Williams, Brooks's new secretary, was watching from her desk with this look I couldn't figure out. Pity? Warning? Her fingers were gripping her phone like she wanted to say something, but the words died in that Arctic atmosphere Brooks had created. The elevator ride down was the longest 38 floors of my life. Every ding was like a countdown to the end of everything I'd built. Caleb shifted around next to me, clearly uncomfortable. "This ain't right, Mr. Harper. Everyone knows what you've done for this company." "It's just business, Caleb," I said, watching those numbers drop. "Nothing personal." But we both knew that was bull. Everything in corporate America is personal, just dressed up in fancy business talk. Every handshake hides a knife. Every meeting's a battle. Every new CEO needs someone to sacrifice on day one to show who's boss. Today, I was the sacrifice. When we got to the lobby, it was like a funeral. Word travels fast in a place like this. Finn from accounting looked like someone had died. Ava from legal had tears in her eyes. Even the security guys at the main desk were standing straighter, like my termination was contagious or something. "Your badge, sir," Lucas said quietly when we reached those revolving doors. I unclipped it from my jacket, ran my thumb over the photo one last time. Younger Wesley, full of hope and ambition. Then I handed it over. The plastic clicked in his palm like a closing coffin. "Take care of each other," I told them both. They nodded, their throats working with words they couldn't say. Then I pushed through those doors for the last time, out into Manhattan morning that couldn't care less about my personal disaster. The city just kept moving around me while I stood there on the sidewalk, suddenly with nowhere to go. 20 years of purpose gone in 5 minutes of corporate theater. But as I finally got my feet moving toward the parking garage and my BMW that had seen 1,000 late nights, something shifted in my chest. Not sadness, not even anger, something colder, more focused. My hand went to my jacket pocket, found the leather portfolio I always carried. By the time I reached my car, I was already making notes, because Mason Brooks had screwed up big time, the kind of mistake only pure arrogance can make. He figured I was just another middle manager, another cog he could toss out. Never bothered asking what projects I handled, what relationships I'd built, what contracts had my signature on them. He didn't know about Brightwell and Knox, and that little oversight was going to be his downfall. The leather on my BMW's steering wheel was worn smooth from 20 years of late-night drives home. Sitting there in the Holstrom parking garage at 11:23 a.m. on a Tuesday, those worn spots felt like the only proof I'd ever worked here. My hands were shaking a little as I opened my portfolio, not from being upset, from trying to keep the fire in my chest from exploding. 20 years. The number kept spinning in my head like a broken record. 20 years since I'd walked into Holstrom as a junior account manager with my MBA still warm from Wharton and enough hunger to eat Wall Street alive. The first big memory hit me like a slap. 3 years in, my first real crisis. Peterson Industries was about to pull a $50 million contract because our previous guy had promised stuff we couldn't deliver. I pulled 4 straight all-nighters, lived on vending machine coffee and pure stubbornness, even tracked down their CEO at his country club to hash things out face to face. We didn't just save the contract, we doubled it. That CEO, Isaac Thompson, still sends me a bottle of good scotch every Christmas. I started writing, putting down everything Brooks had just thrown away like garbage. The Shanghai deal in 2018, spent 3 months in China, learned enough Mandarin to be polite, built relationships with government guys who didn't trust Americans. While other companies were getting their asses kicked by red tape, I was getting permits that opened up a billion-dollar market. Cost me my marriage, though. Sarah had enough during that trip. "You love that company more than me," she said over a crackling international call. She wasn't wrong. Then there was the Phoenix disaster in 2020. Our lead programmer vanished with all our code 2 weeks before launch. right when COVID had everything locked down. I put together a team across 12 time zones, worked alongside guys writing code even though I hadn't touched programming since business school. We delivered on time. The client never knew how close we came to total meltdown. Page after page, I wrote down what Brooks had just pissed away. Names, numbers, victories I'd pulled out of impossible situations. Like the time I caught our vendor padding invoices by 30%, saved us $8 million a year. Or the Garcia Technologies partnership that everyone said was impossible. They don't work with American companies, the board kept saying. So I flew to Barcelona 6 times, learned to appreciate flamenco, had dinner with Garcia's family until business became personal. That partnership brought in over $300 million. My phone started buzzing. Text from Finn. Can't believe what just happened. We're all in shock. Let me know if you need anything. Then Ava. This is insane. You built our whole client division. More and more messages rolling in. By noon, I had 47 texts from colleagues, clients, even competitors who'd already heard the news. Word travels fast in our business. My termination would be cocktail party gossip in every major firm by happy hour. But I didn't answer any of them. I just kept writing about the sacrifices that had built my reputation. The vacation in Tuscany I cut short when the Morrison deal went sideways. The weekend golf tournaments I missed to handle one crisis after another. All those mornings arriving before the cleaning crew, all those nights leaving after them, building something I thought actually mattered. Fresh perspectives, Brooks had said, not relics from the past. I had to laugh, even sitting alone in my car. The sound was pretty bitter. He wanted fresh? This guy had no clue how stale his whole playbook was. I'd watched 4 CEOs come through. Holstrom. Every single one thought they were going to revolutionize everything. Everyone eventually learned that business isn't about blowing things up. It's about building on what works. You can't just pivot relationships that took years to create. You can't disrupt trust. And you sure as hell can't download 20 years of knowing how things really work. My phone rang. Unknown number. Almost didn't pick up, but something made me hit answer. Wesley. Voice sounded familiar but stressed out. It's Isabella Garcia from Brightwell and Knox. I just heard what happened. Please tell me this is some kind of joke. My stomach dropped through the floor. Isabella ran our account with them. A sweet $120 million deal over 5 years that we'd just signed last week. Took us 18 months to put that together. I'd been the point man on the whole thing. It's not a joke, I said. As of about an hour ago, I'm no longer with Holstrom. She went quiet for so long I figured we got cut off. Then, Wesley, you know what this means, right? You've read your own contract. Had I read it? Hell, I wrote the thing. Every word, every comma, every safety net I could think of, including Section 47B, what they call a key person clause. My insurance policy, my way of making sure that if Brightwell and Knox was buying Wesley Harper's expertise, they'd actually get Wesley Harper, not some substitute Holstrom threw at them 6 months later. I understand, I said carefully. Then you know I've got to make some calls. This is going to be a real problem, Wesley. A very big problem. After she hung up, I sat there in the quiet of my car, surrounded by 20 years of ghosts. My portfolio was open on my lap, filled with the story of everything Mason Brooks had just thrown in the trash. Because I knew something he didn't, something his arrogance had blinded him to. He thought he'd fired some middle manager, some old-timer taking up space, but he'd actually lit a fuse on a bomb he didn't even know existed, and that bomb was going to go off thanks to a contract clause he never bothered reading, in a deal he never bothered understanding, with clients he never bothered meeting. I closed my portfolio and started the car. No more sadness, no more hurt feelings, just the cold satisfaction of knowing that sometimes revenge doesn't need planning. Sometimes it's just what happens when stupidity meets consequences in a marble lobby. Driving out of that garage into the bright Manhattan afternoon, my phone kept buzzing with messages. Support, shock, disbelief. But I was already thinking ahead, seeing the dominoes lined up to fall, the panic that was coming, the look on Brooks's face when he figured out what he'd done. He wanted to erase the past, about to learn that in business, the past has a way of reaching out and grabbing you by the throat, especially when that past was smart enough to protect itself with ironclad contracts. Next morning, I woke up at 5:30, not because of an alarm, just habit. 20 years of early mornings don't disappear overnight, but this time was different. No emails screaming for attention. No calendar reminders about 7 a.m. calls with Singapore. No mental list of fires to put out before most people had their coffee. I made real breakfast for the first time in years. Eggs, bacon, the works. Not some protein bar I grabbed running to the car. Had the news on in the background, market reports I didn't need to worry about anymore. Funny how freedom can feel like you're falling off a cliff. At exactly 8:02 a.m., my phone went crazy. First call from Finn O'Connor, our chief legal guy. Let it go to voicemail. Second was from HR, then accounting, then some number I didn't recognize with a Holstrom extension. By 8:15, I had 12 missed calls and 23 texts, each one more frantic than the last. Picked Sophia Williams' text to read first. Emergency BNK invoked clause. Legal says only you can fix this. Brooks is going ballistic. Please call ASAP. Then Isabella. Board voted unanimously. Contract suspended pending resolution of key person clause. We're prepared to move forward with Sullivan Associates unless Holstrom can fix this within 48 hours. I tried to buy you more time, but the board's firm on this. Sullivan Associates, our biggest competitor, who'd been circling Brightwell and Knox like vultures for years. Isabella wasn't just playing hardball, she was showing me her cards. This wasn't about pulling out of our deal. This was about taking everything we'd built and handing it to our biggest rivals. My doorbell rang at 8:27. Security camera showed Sophia Williams on my porch, perfect in her designer suit despite the early hour, clutching a leather case like her life depended on it. I finished my coffee before answering. Mr. Harper, she started before I even opened the door all the way. Thank you for seeing me. I know this is unusual, but I didn't agree to see you, I said calmly. You showed up at my house uninvited at 8:30 in the morning. Her perfect composure cracked a little. I'm sorry, but this couldn't wait. Mr. Brooks sent me to... Mr. Brooks sent you, I laughed, short and sharp. Same Mr. Brooks who couldn't be bothered talking to me yesterday? Who had security walk me out like some kind of criminal? She turned red but kept pushing. The Brightwell and Knox situation is critical. They're claiming breach of contract based on your termination. Legal reviewed the key person clause and... She swallowed hard. We need you to come back immediately. I stepped aside, waved her in. Not because I was being nice, but because I wanted her to see what she was asking me to give up. This comfortable house I'd barely lived in, the life I'd sacrificed for a company that tossed me out like yesterday's newspaper. The company needs you, she tried again, setting her case on my kitchen counter. Mr. Brooks has authorized me to make you an offer. Full reinstatement, formal apology, 25% raise. Stop right there. I held up my hand. Sophia, let me explain something. Yesterday morning, I got humiliated in front of everyone I work with. 20 years of service dismissed like I was some kind of dead weight. My whole career turned into a line item on his reorganization chart. She opened her mouth, but I kept going. Now, because of one contract clause he was too arrogant to read, because of relationships he couldn't be bothered understanding. Suddenly I'm valuable again. That's not how this works. What do you want? She asked, sounding desperate. Name your terms. I walked to my window, watching the morning sun hit my neglected garden. What did I want? Yesterday I wanted revenge. Today, standing in my kitchen with nowhere to rush off to, I wanted something bigger. I want Brooks to understand what he almost destroyed, I said finally. Not just some contract or revenue stream, a network of trust that took decades to build. I want him to come here himself, not send his people to clean up his mess. And if I come back, it's on my terms, not his. My phone rang before she could answer. Caller ID made me smile. Noah Peterson. I need to take this, I said, hitting speaker so Sophia could hear everything. Morning, Noah. Wesley, thank God, just got off the phone with Isabella Garcia. She told me what happened. Brightwell and Knox is pulling that key person clause, and she suggested pretty strongly that we might want to look at our own contracts with Holstrom. Sophia's face went white as a sheet. I see, I said carefully. What are you thinking? What am I thinking? Noah laughed, but there was no humor in it. I'm thinking any company stupid enough to fire Wesley Harper doesn't deserve my business. We're calling a board meeting for tomorrow to discuss our options. Wanted to give you a heads up. If you're not with Holstrom anymore, we'll be calling you directly about future partnerships. After I hung up, Sophia sank into one of my kitchen stools like her legs gave out. "Peterson Industries too?" she whispered. "Relationships matter," I said simply. "Your boss thought he was cutting dead weight. Never bothered checking what was actually holding up the roof. What happened next was like watching dominoes fall." By noon, Brooks himself was sitting in my living room, his arrogance replaced by something that looked a lot like panic. By 2 p.m., I had a signed contract making me Executive VP of Client Relations, reporting straight to the Board of Directors. By 4 p.m., I was back in the Holstrom building, but this time as the guy who'd saved the company from its own CEO. Took about 3 months to expose the rest of Brooks's plan. Turns out he'd been working with Garrett Sullivan from Sullivan Associates to sabotage our major contracts. The idea was to make them fail even if I came back. Then Sullivan would swoop in looking like heroes while Brooks got kickbacks for delivering distressed clients. Pretty slick, except they got sloppy with the digital trail. Brooks resigned in disgrace, his whole crew of imported sharks scattered like roaches when you turn on the lights. The board offered me his job, and after thinking about it for about 10 seconds, I said yes. 6 months later, I'm standing in that same marble lobby where it all started. But this time, I'm not carrying congratulatory flowers or wearing the desperate smile of someone trying to prove their worth. I'm here to welcome our newest client partner, a Fortune 100 company that chose us over 3 bigger competitors. Every other firm promised innovation and disruption, their CEO tells me as we head to the elevators. Only Holstrom talked about trust and staying power. In this economy, we need partners who'll be there when the novelty wears off. The executive floor looks completely different now. Got rid of all that sterile white and chrome nonsense, brought back the warm wood and comfortable spaces where people actually want to have conversations. The old boardroom table, the one Owen Mitchell's grandfather commissioned back in 1952, now sits in our main client conference room. When partners visit, they feel the weight of our history, not just our ambition. Standing at my office window, watching the sun set over Manhattan, I think about that Tuesday morning when everything went to hell. How Brooks called me a relic, something from the past that needed clearing out. How he figured firing me would prove he was the new sheriff in town. Turns out he was half right. I am from the past. But in business, the past isn't something you throw away. It's the foundation everything else gets built on. You can't just delete 20 years of handshake deals, late-night crisis calls, and showing up when it mattered. That stuff doesn't live in some computer file you can just erase. Brooks thought power came from disruption, from tearing down what came before. What he learned, too late to save his career, is that real power comes from building something so solid that removing it brings down everything else. These days, when some hotshot consultant talks about disrupting our industry, I just smile and pour another coffee. Let them disrupt all they want. We'll be here when their revolution burns itself out, still standing on foundations that no CEO's ego can shake. Sometimes the best revenge isn't planned at all. Sometimes it's just showing up, doing the work, and letting arrogance destroy itself. The old guard didn't just survive, we won. And Holstrom Dynamics is stronger because we learned that sometimes the past isn't what needs changing. Sometimes it's the future that needs to learn some respect.